Welcome to another Genshin Impact video. Today I want to talk about this year's 5-star selector because, as is always the case with 3 characters, people probably want to know which one is the best, which one should you choose. So in this video I'm gonna go over all the options one by one and just share my thoughts about them, and then at the end I'm also gonna make my own choice, both on my main account and my auto account, so if you wanna know who I'm gonna choose, stay till the end. So let's start. But before I actually talk about any specific character, let me just say that in my opinion, there is no single best character to get here. Most of the standard characters have some strength and some weaknesses, and while some definitely are better than others, it's also always important to not just consider the meta, but also just who you like the most. There's nothing wrong with just choosing your favorite, even if most people are telling you that that one is trash or not worth it. If you really like Qiqi, for example, it's okay to choose Qiqi. And even talking about strength and viability, it's not actually as simple and straightforward as it seems, because strength is not always just about damage. Sometimes it's about utility, about how well a character can support the rest of the team, or in how many teams can they even fit and work properly. Those are all things to consider. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is simply that the strongest DPS here is not necessarily the best character for you to choose, depending on what you're looking for. And that actually brings us to our first character, who's definitely not the best DPS here, but one of the better options, I would say. And I'm a bit biased here, I admit, because she's one of my favorite characters as well, and was my first 5-star ever, but that doesn't change how useful she is, and I'm of course talking about Jean. Jean is amazing. If you're looking for just sheer damage, then maybe she's not the best choice, but in terms of utility and support, you can't really go wrong with Jean. She's still to this day one of the best healers in the game. Her burst just completely heals your entire team immediately, and you don't even have to hyper focus on her healing to achieve that. I often see people build her with triple attack or attack healing bonus, but that's actually overkill. You can build her for damage with like a Nemo damage bonus and crit, and she still heals enough for most teams. Unless you're using someone like Nilou, I guess, who has 70k HP. And on top of all that healing, she can equip Iridescent Venera for resistance threat and do some fun shenanigans with fall damage or her Sunfire build with Bennett. There's honestly a lot you can do with Jean, but the main reason why I think she is by far one of the best standard characters is simply her amazing synergy with one of the best characters in the entire game, Furina. Furina and Jean are a dream team. You can basically just put these two in a team with any sub DPS and main DPS and it just works. The team damage is gonna be amazing. Even with all the great healers we have nowadays, Jean is still one of the best ones to immediately max out Furina's fanfare stacks with just the press of one single button. And like I said, she can swirl on top of that and even do some damage. Not as much as a dedicated DPS, of course, but it's not bad. If you have Furina and you're still looking for a healer to use with her, then get Jean. Heck, even if you're not looking for another healer to use with Furina, you should still get Jean if you don't have her yet. If you don't have Furina, but plan to roll for her at some point, also get Jean. It's really that simple. And even without Furina, Jean is anything but useless. Just, yeah, I don't know what else to say. Jean is simply amazing. And in terms of supporting the team, there is no better option among the standard characters, in my opinion. Maybe Mona in some cases, but we'll get to her later. So now that we've talked about the best support / healer, let's talk about the best DPS next. And that title, I think, goes to Tighnari, who can do some pretty good damage in spread teams, so as long as you have some decent electro units to use with him, he's a good choice if you're looking for a DPS character. And I should also mention that his signature weapon is available in the Sumeru Chronicled Wish currently, and that's actually one of the rarest 5-star weapons. It's basically Chronicled Wish exclusive at this point. It's never on the actual weapon banner. So yeah, this might be your only chance in a long time to get Tighnari's bow, but only round the Chronicled Wish if you have enough pulls for 2 pity, so if you don't care about losing the 50-50. Honestly, all the weapons in this Chronicled Wish are pretty good. Dia's weapon is there as well, it's as rare as Tighnari's. But yeah, enough about weapons. The point is, Tighnari is a pretty good DPS, but he's not the only good DPS among the standard characters, especially if you're not a fan of the charge shot playstyle. So let's talk about another pretty good DPS next, Diluc. He's kind of a special case because he used to be the best DPS in the game basically back in 1.0, but then he fell off hard over the years, and nowadays we have so many good pyro DPSs that just outclass him. But he did have a little bit of a comeback when Qianyun was released, because as a Claymore user, he has a pretty good plunging attack multiplier, and on top of that, he can infuse his own attacks with pyro, so he works really well as a plunge DPS with Qianyun. So if you have Qianyun or plan to pull her in the future, then Diluc is definitely a good choice. Tighnari might be better overall, but Diluc does have that niche as a plunge DPS. And I mean, it's not like Tighnari is that universal either, since he's kinda confined to spread teams, like I already said. So yeah, I don't know which one I'd actually rank higher. It really depends on which supports you have and whether you like the charge shot playstyle or the plunge attack playstyle more. And if you like neither of those, then maybe you like the punch the enemy in the face playstyle that the other Pyro Claymore among the standard characters uses. Dehya. Now, Dehya is very underrated in my opinion. You often hear people say that she's the worst 5-star, mainly because of her lackluster damage, and yeah, it's true that at C0 her damage sadly isn't that great, but she's also not really meant to be a main DPS. She's meant to be a tank, a character who helps the team with survivability, but also has some off-field pyro application. And yeah, of course, Xiangling does the off-field pyro stuff better, but Xiangling is Xiangling. Even Marwika's off-field pyro application can't keep up with Xiangling's. And Dehya has found some use cases over the years, for example with Mualani, whose slow, big hydro hits work really well with Dehya's slower pyro application. I actually defeated the turtle in last update's Stygian Onslaught on Fearless difficulty with a Mualani team that had Dehya as the main pyro applicator. And also one thing I really like about Dehya is that she can relocate the field she summons with her skill. Most characters who have skills or bursts that are confined to a small circle are just screwed if the enemies move out of that circle. Bennett is actually a prime example for this. He's great, but his circle is really small, and once he places it down, it can't be moved. Dehya, on the other hand, can relocate her circle once during its duration, and it's a bigger circle than most in the first place. And it gives a ton of interruption resistance and, like I already mentioned, a bit of survivability. Overall, this is a character I would call comfortable. Yes, I think she's a very comfortable character to play, and I hate how overhated she is just because of her lackluster damage. Especially since at C1 and up, she can actually do some pretty decent damage if you build her for it. But yeah, again, it's not really what Dehya is actually about. Some people just completely miss the point when it comes to her, or they are just too blinded by Xiangling to see Dehya's strengths. Anyway, in my opinion, she's fine. She's like somewhere in the middle. Definitely not the best 5-star you could choose here, but also far from the worst. Especially nowadays, since we do have some teams now where Dehya works really well. But enough about Dehya. We still have 4 more characters to talk about, 1 more DPS and the rest is supports and healers. So let's talk about our last DPS now, Keqing. Keqing is kinda similar to Diluc in the sense that both had a rough time after the version 1 era of the game, though Keqing was never as dominant in the meta as Diluc used to be all the way back in the first few versions. Much like Diluc, however, she had somewhat of a resurgence later on, specifically when Sumeru came out and the new element Dendro with it. I still remember how excited everyone was back then, and now it's old news. Dendro has been in the game so long. There have been more updates with Dendro than without. I mean, oh my god, I feel old. But yeah, Dendro saved Keqing. She got a lot more viable when she got access to Aggravate. Like, she's still not really meta, but she can do pretty good damage now in the right team, and is just generally a pretty fun character to play. If you're looking for a DPS but don't want Tighnari or Diluc, then Keqing is a fine choice as well. She probably is actually better than Diluc outside of his specific plunge niche, though I guess you could make plunge Keqing work as well if you really wanted to, because you can also infuse her attacks with Electro. I've actually never tried that, but yeah, plunge Keqing is definitely possible now that I think about it. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is she's good. That's it. Solid accurate DPS. Yeah, let's leave it at that and move on to Mizuki. Yeah, let's talk about the new standard 5-star next. Yume Mizuki. She is interesting. She's mainly a swirl character, but also a healer, but her damage is nothing to write home about, and neither is her healing. Like, it's fine, but when Jean is literally right there, I mean, Mizuki just loses. If you're looking for a healer who can also swirl, there's absolutely no reason to go for Mizuki over Jean. Now that being said, Mizuki does have something going for her. She's probably the best exploration character among the standard 5 stars, because her skill lets her float around for a while, which can be quite useful for exploration, and constantly triggering swirl while casually floating around the enemies can actually be quite fun. But yeah, overall, she's one of the weaker characters here, definitely. I wouldn't really recommend choosing her unless you really like her or you already have all the other characters, which probably is the case for a lot of players since Mizuki only came out a few months ago, as opposed to all the other standard characters who have been available for years. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Mizuki. So next up we have Mona, who is actually a pretty good support. Back in the day, people used her all the time for nuke setups, because she actually has a significant damage buff in her burst, and she also has some off-field hydro application, and she still does what she does pretty well, like you can still do those nuke setups, so Mona is by no means bad. It's just that, much like some of the other standard characters, she got a bit power crept over the years. There are just so many good hydro supports nowadays, and hydro sub DPSs, most notably for Rena of course, that Mona doesn't really stand out anymore. So I would only recommend her if you don't have that many Hydro characters yet, but considering that Yelan is getting a rerun soon, if you're really in need of a good Hydro character, it's probably better to go for Yelan instead. So yeah, Mona, she's good, but she has very strong competition, let's just say that. So, that leaves us with one last standard character, and that one is of course Qiqi, the infamous zombie girl that you never want to lose your 50-50 to. Yeah, Qiqi is Qiqi. I mean, she's not that good. Basically, all she does is heal, but her healing is mainly single target, and with lower multipliers than Jean, who heals the whole team by a huge amount with just one button press, like I said in the beginning. And Qiqi's damage is also not really there. I don't know, I usually try to be positive and not just straight up hate on characters, but there's just no silver lining really for Qiqi, like there was for Mizuki with the exploration stuff. Like I said in the beginning, if you really like Qiqi, then there's nothing wrong with choosing her, but if you care about gameplay, then Qiqi is definitely the character I would recommend the least out of all the standard 5 stars. Sorry to all the Qiqi fans, to all 5 of you, but that's how it is. She's the worst standard character, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. So, to summarize everything, the best character to get here, in my opinion, is Jean, because of how versatile she is. Healing, swirls, a bit of damage, she has it all. I mean, most of the standard characters have a niche somewhere, but Jean's niche is Furina, basically. And that's not actually a niche, because Furina is great for 90% of teams in this game. But if you're looking for a DPS instead, then Tighnari, Diluc and Keqing are all good options. And C1 or above Dehya is also worth mentioning, though Dehya is more of a tank. For support and some hydro application, Mona is good, and for exploration and some fun with stronger swirls, look no further than Mizuki. And if you really like small zombie girls, then Qiqi exists, I guess. So that's the long and short of it. And now it's time for me to choose a character, first on my main account. Am I following my own advice? Yes, I am. I'm gonna choose Jean. But not just because she is a good character, but also because she is my favorite. And yes, as you can see, she is at C4 right now, and I want to get her to C6 ASAP. And I can actually guarantee C6 if I choose her here and then get a constellation from the new free constellation event. And then I will finally have a C6 standard 5-star, which will also make it so that if I get any further genes on the standard banner or from Lost 50-50s in the future, I actually get Masterless Stellar Fortuna, so I can maybe get a character to level 100 someday. So yeah, Jean it is. Here we go. Yes, I am sure that I want to invite Jean. I was also thinking maybe Mizuki, because I don't have her yet, but yeah, I just really want C6 Jean, and this is C5 now. So just one more step, and then I will finally have my first C6 standard character. It's kinda insane that I've been playing this game for 5 years and have not even been free to play. I'm a low spender on my main account, and yet I still don't have any C6 5 stars. I mean, I can prove it right here, because we can see all the constellation levels. Diluc is the highest at C5, Qiqi C3, Mona's only C2, Keqing C4, Tighnari C2, Dehya C4, Mizuki not yet obtained. So yeah, they have just been so evenly spread for me that not a single one of them is C6 yet. But soon, Jean will be. Anyway, let's go over to my free-to-play alt account now and choose a 5-star there as well. And over here, the choice is actually also pretty simple, because out of all the standard characters, there's only one I have built so far on my alt account, and that one is Tighnari, who is currently C2. So yeah, I'm gonna get C3 Tighnari here. So let's do this. There we go. So those were my thoughts about the standard characters and my 2 choices. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it a bit helpful. If you did, then please leave a like, comment and subscribe for more Genshin Impact and other gacha content. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.